going to hear from a trailblazer in the way wellness information is distributed, received, and experienced by consumers and healthcare providers alike. Clare Martorana, did I say that right? Martorana? Is the Wellbeing Innovation Practice Leader at WisdomWorks. She's the former SVP, General Manager, and Editor-at-Large of WebMD. She built that brand into a household name and developed an online audience of over 100 million unique monthly users. When she's not redefining how we receive information, she lives off the grid in a totally sustainable community outside Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you, Clare.
Thank you, Bonnie. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much. Talk about defining moments. Today, I had a defining moment getting to listen to His Holiness. It was absolutely amazing, so thank you. I've had two big defining moments in my career in the last 15 years. I've been very fortunate to be on the forefront of the development of the internet and how people are seeking health and wellness information online. So my first defining moment was in 1999. I was an independent filmmaker, and a friend called me and said she was working at this internet company and they needed somebody to come in and help run it. And so I said, absolutely, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll show up on Monday. So I wrapped a film Sunday night. On Monday, I showed up, walked into a meeting, chaos, and just learned from the ground up. So about a week later, I was sitting next to a physician, and I got a phone call, and it was from my mom, and she told me she had cancer. And it was, you know, that call you don't want to get, and I was totally surprised. So I turned to this doctor, Dr. George Lundberg, and I said, George, what do I do? Next day, we had gotten some more information, and my mom was denied a very important treatment called radiological mapping that would have allowed us to figure out how the tumor was progressing. So I said, George, can you get on the phone and talk to the radiologist and the oncologist and all of those things? And he said, no, but I'm going to sit here with you and I'm going to teach you how to do it. So he taught me how to get on the phone and speak to oncologists, radiologists, and all of these things, and he taught me how to be an advocate for my mom's health. And by being an advocate for my mom's health, we got her treatment. And she's 84 years old today. She's a 3-time cancer survivor. And she's awesome. So that was my first defining moment. And I just thought, wow, I don't know if I need to make movies anymore. I think I want to do this internet thing. Because if we can get this information out there, and I can actually help teach people how to be advocates for their own health and their family's health, that could be really meaningful. So that was one of my first defining moments. The second one was about 1.5 years ago, and I got a phone call. A friend asked me to talk to a young man who wanted to start a health company, online health business. So I love, I said to Mary earlier, I don't know where she is, I love students and I love young, enthusiastic people. So I took the phone call. A nice kid, his name's Jared Heyman, and he had this idea for crowdsourcing medical diagnosis. And I thought, what a harebrained scheme is this? I cannot believe, but he's a nice kid. I did chatting with him. So I had the first call and exchanged pleasantries and told him how hard it was to start a company. And he had already sold one internet company, so he was experienced. So he called me back the next week, and we talked a little bit more, and he started talking about crowdsourcing and crowdfunding and all of these different things, and I thought, again, I'm not sure that I can really help him. And then he started to tell me a little bit more about the story of his sister. His sister was 19 years old, got very ill, was at college, got very ill. Long story short, 3 years, 16 doctors, multiple drugs, and she just descended into a very, very dark place. And she finally got the right treatment, which was she has Fragile X, a rare disorder, estrogen patch. she was back up and running, and it took doctors at the National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C. to actually help. All of these amazing clinicians, I've worked with amazing physicians and amazing thousands, actually, of incredibly dedicated and passionate health professionals, writers, journalists. I run newsrooms, and everybody comes to work every day wanting to make a difference, wanting to be the change in the world. And nobody could help this young lady. And it took these specialists to help her. So when he first mentioned to me crowdsourcing a medical diagnosis, I literally thought, okay, I'm gonna stand on a corner, I'm gonna ask a bunch of random people what's wrong with me, I'm gonna take all that information in, and somehow magically I'm gonna get a diagnosis. But when he actually explained how he was gonna use some software he already had developed, it was that transformative moment. So I went out and I got James Sawicki's book on crowdsourcing and read it and went, holy cow. So that was my second defining moment. And at that same time, I was really burnt out. I was running a business in the UK, running a business in the US, on planes, in airports, and really just not myself. I was just tired and didn't have the normal enthusiasm that I have for almost everything else that I do. So here we go. That was the making it personal part, since it's an inward day. I'm sorry, I'm having a... Could you advance the slide, please? Nope. So here's my whole presentation. I'm going to go really fast. So we're going to talk about trends. So a few people have mentioned megatrends. Megatrends are big shifts that happen when a lot of people make personal choices. Right? It's an interesting way to look at what a megatrend is, but they are all individual choices that add up to something. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about was the quantified self. So what this means is it's using technology to create self-awareness that actually potentially leads to change. So an example of that is wearable technology. So I wear my Fitbit. I have about 7 different devices that I use that are actually biometric devices, and they're measuring something. So this wearable technology marketplace, I don't know if you could tell me, has anybody been wearing devices? There's 1, 2. So not that many people in this room are actually wearing devices yet. You will be. The growth in wearable devices is projected. A Credit Suisse report just came out. Right now, it's a $3 billion industry. It's projected to be a $50 billion industry in 5 years. And that is being driven by microsensors, and microsensors that are being embedded in our clothing. They're being embedded in our shoes. I just read about this really interesting baby sock that is actually a food-grade silicone baby sock that you put on an infant, and it alerts you if the baby rolls over. It tells you the baby's temperature. It gives you all of this biometric data so you can be the absolute obsessive brand new parent in monitoring every single thing about your baby. But this wearable technology is going to be everywhere. I have seen some prototypes of exercise clothing that actually will help you in your Pilates poses. So literally, it's measuring everything that's going on in your body and will actually tell you when you've hit the optimum pose, which is absolutely fascinating. So the other thing that's a very big trend is mobile. We had a salon about it the other day. And mobile is pretty fascinating. I don't necessarily agree that there won't be any travel agents because everybody will be on a mobile device. I think that the human touch is still the most important thing that we can rely on. But this marketplace, there's very different things. There's mobile apps, which are standalone. There's mobile websites that you can access a website via your mobile device. And there's a lot of other technology advancements that are happening in this market. But a 60% growth in that is going to be pretty gigantic. Another trend is wearable computing. So augmented reality, which is basically using cloud-based data to augment the way you're perceiving the world. So the picture is showing just a view of an intersection, and layered on top of that is weather data, it can be traffic data, it can be a bunch of different things. So think about interacting with people in a therapy, in some type of a therapeutic environment. You very potentially will be seeing this in a few years in your own businesses. I know it's scary. This is the scary one that everybody gets completely worried about. Big data. The interesting thing that's going on is you have websites, you have apps, you have these biometric devices that everybody's wearing, and all of that data is out there, but it's all in silos. We don't really have a great view yet of ourselves. And I think there's a couple different ways that you can look at this. One way is you can be scared, right, of the privacy concerns, and you can start there. Or you can think about big data a little bit differently. The first slide that I had, which I jumped past by probably not doing this right, was when challengers become defenders, innovation is lost. And what I mean by that is, I have always been a challenger. I always ask why, how come, what about, those are kind of my standard questions. But when you become a defender, where you're defending what you do in your company, you defend your position, you're not thinking about things and kind of expanding your mind, it's hard to innovate. So in big data, I have to challenge myself because I'm a real privacy advocate, and the premise of almost all of the businesses that I've helped to run, we've had 2 IPOs. I mean, these are really big publicly traded companies. The focus is on trust and credibility and all of those real benchmarks, but when I start to think about big data, it was making me really uncomfortable. And actually, I had a little bit of an insight today listening to His Holiness when he talked about that religious leader that came to see him and was talking about speeding up, I guess, the end of the world so everybody could go to heaven. And he turned it around and he said, what about heaven coming to earth? Right? So with big data, maybe the opportunity that we have is changing around how we think about it. If you saw Louis' film, he used big data and created absolutely beautiful artwork, right? All those pictures were streaming because he was using data and then representing it back to us beautifully. So I think there's an opportunity with big data, and one of the things we spoke about in the mobile salon the other day is, what if we used, what if you owned your own data? What if you owned it and you lent it out to other people? Right? So you weren't afraid of somebody stealing your data, learning about things, denying you insurance, and doing all of those different things. What if you actually own that data and in some way were compensated, potentially, for lending it out? So I'm challenging myself to think about things in a totally different way, and big data is one of them. The Internet of Everything. So there's all of these different software languages and platforms and devices and biometric data, and there's not a universal language. All of these things aren't connected to each other yet, so I don't have a profile of me. I don't have all of these things that are talking to each other in a way that's giving me insight. So I've spoken to a lot of people, and the reason that they get so freaked out about these biometric devices is they think that it's going to, again, the big data issue is a really big part of it, but they don't believe that these will lead to sustained behavior change. But sustained behavior change doesn't come from a device, right? But sustained behavior change comes from education and insight that we have about ourselves. And we're the ones that are going to create the sustained behavior change, not a device, not an internet site, not a company. It's how we are going to think about the decisions and the choices that we make. So, but by creating an internet of everything, where there's an opportunity, especially in wellness, to potentially connect some of this data, it could be very exciting. So talking a little bit about the future, there is a UN study that just came out basically talking about life expectancy. So we know in both developed and developing countries, life expectancy is going to increase in the next few years. So how are we going to use all of this technology that I'm talking about to actually change wellness and our personal wellness and the wellness of the planet? So Moonshot Projects, I just absolutely love this title. So I don't know if people are familiar with it, but Google does some projects and they call them moonshots. So one of them is, I think, the car that drives by itself, and there's a lot of other things going on. The reason I get so excited about Moonshot Projects is when NASA started its moon program, they, over, I think, a 10-year period of time, they filed 6,300 patents for new technology. That's a lot of patents. And some of those patents include long-distance communication, cochlear implants for hearing, smoke detectors, cordless tools, scratch-proof lenses for glasses, medical monitoring for astronauts because they're in space and you have to figure out if they're healthy. So telemedicine, a lot of that started from NASA. So I actually get really excited thinking about Moonshot Projects and what the possibility of technology is in the future. If anybody had read recently that Google actually is starting a new company called Calico, which they are planning, there's nobody better at data, so they're planning on looking at all of the data that is going on. It can be between doctors and patients, it can be just online data that they're looking at, it can be stored data in databases in different places. And they're going to look at that data and see what insights they can glean from that. And I think that's actually potentially really exciting to see what could happen when they are actually looking. And I love that headline. I just think it's funny. So another idea in the future is actually prescribing wellness. So being incredibly deliberate about how we think about wellness. So there is a term that I heard recently that I thought I would share with you, which is, we all know there's illness, and we all know there's wellness, and lots of conversation, wellness, well-being, all of those different things. In the middle, there's something called willness, right? A lot of people are willing to change. And so if you really think about the health part being on kind of one side of this, let's say that's 25%, that means 75% of people are actually willing and want information and want direction and want devices, and they want things that are going to inspire them to change. And so thinking about, there was a question to a panelist yesterday about the I think Terry's presentation about if governments were going to charge people to be well, or there was going to be regulation over being well. And the best ROI you could possibly get is keeping the healthy healthy, right? So wellness is absolutely, it is core to us all living in civil societies, and I think it's obviously core to what you guys do. And it's, I think there's an opportunity for the spa industry to be part of that solution and embracing wellness in a way that hasn't been done before. And I think that's really how I'd like to wrap up, is challenging you guys, right? Think about this differently. Think about how you can actually prescribe wellness to people. How can you be part of the solution, right? How can the spa industry and a lot of the work that Susie doing and potentially what you talked about yesterday with the Institute, how can you coalesce around wellness in a way that's actually going to drive the conversation forward? How can you organize and use data to actually move the conversation, have people engaging in a different type of dialogue, supporting new companies starting, supporting new ways of communicating with people. I think it's an unbelievable opportunity, and I really, really can't wait to see what the entire spa industry does in the next few years, because I think it could actually be very transformative. So thank you very much.
So we have some time for a few questions. Does anybody have questions about how to move further in this wonderful world of technology?
Does anybody? Yeah.
Got one here? Jean-Claude?
Well, the question is very simple. How do I optimize the use of all those devices?
It's a great question. I think there's a huge opportunity for a super company to come along.
Shall we start it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that there is an opportunity to actually help create this Internet of everything around wellness data, right? And that's I think that is one of the biggest opportunities that is out there, because the health care industry has a lot of challenges, right? And they're very busy, and they're going to be very busy for several years trying to figure that out, right? So let everybody focus on the medicine and science and all of those things. And I think really by pivoting to thinking about these devices are so in their infancy. My scale has a website. Right? I'm not going to my Scale's website probably ever, right? But it has some interesting information. So I want to figure out how I can get my Scale website, my biometric device, my mobile device, the 5 apps that I use, all of that information into a profile about me that's actually going to help me make better decisions about myself and my own well-being, my health, my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health, and my well-being.
I have a question for you. Have you
Sure.
seen any spas using technology to convert people from occasional visitors into an ongoing relationship?
I haven't seen it in a spa, but I have seen a cardiologist. So this is really cool. In the States, there is a something called Concierge Medicine, and it's basically when a doctor doesn't take any insurance and you have to pay cash.
And he's really nice to you because you're paying cash.
No, really nice. You get his cell phone number. It's fabulous. But what's interesting about that is this cardiologist is actually prescribing these.
And then he connects to your data.
He is actually sitting down with you and helping you analyze that data and make changes. And the other thing that's really fabulous about him is he is also, his practice is he's singular cardiologist, nutritionist, and fitness expert. That's 3 people in his practice, and that's who it is. So you come in, you have a consultation with him. He decides which one of these is best. I've tested 7 so far, and each one of them has wonderful attributes, but none of them are giving me a profile of me that gives me any information that I can really, really take action from. Right? Some of them are actually telling me that I'm sleeping really well, and other ones are telling me that I'm in REM sleep, how much I'm in REM sleep. But they're all really different, and I think that, to answer your question, Claude, that's the opportunity. The opportunity is in some way pulling together a profile and wrapping it in wellness so that I can actually make those changes.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. I think you're absolutely spot on. I'm working on some research at the moment to create exactly what you say, a personal profile. But I think the opportunity there is not just for you, but you can then aggregate your profile with any group, like a Facebook group.
Yeah.
So your wellness profile could be the profile for your school, your community, your workplace, your municipality, your country. And it's human nature to want to know where you are in a hierarchy. So you want to know where your profile is compared to other people, but your group.
Right.
And then there's another community of gaming.
That's exactly.
And the gamification of your wellness data.
Right.
And I think that what the real opportunity is to invite everyone on the planet to participate in a computer game where we use the variables from our own life, our own carbon footprint, our own health, our own happiness become the variables, and we join teams to maximise health, happiness, prosperity, sustainability, and intimacy globally. And I think that's going to be the game changer for medicine, for hospitality, and that's the merger. And I think we're imminent. I mean, we're at that defining point now, and the technology is the enabler, but ultimately it's the people that has to do it.
Yeah. Yes, please. Is a response to that, right? Isn't that what we want? We want to be able to get a view not only of ourselves, but how we fit in our community, and then how we fit in the world. And that's very exciting. And I love gaming as well. I mean, it's not the video game, but actually challenging yourself. And online education in health, in wellness, I think is another gigantic opportunity. There are phenomenal new platforms like Coursera, where you actually are, the massive online courses. There are so many ways. I've spoken to a couple people here about online education, and I think that there are that is just begging for the Wellbeing Institute to actually embrace and be the champion of.
Wow. Well, as Susie says, these are really conversation starters, and I can tell there's going to be a lot of people running up to you wanting to talk more about how to put this into reality and build relationships. So thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much. Thank you.